Welcome to the second installment for What If Deku Was a Spy. That one Weeb will not be joining us on this video. However, I do hope you guys still go on to enjoy the video.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
We pick off right where Weeb had left off. Izuku, or his now new alias of Luna, which means moon in Spanish, and just sounds awesome, would be his name. Not only that, but his last name would be Hagakoshi, because I just could not think of any other name. That said, like Weeb said, Deku at this moment would be getting ready to take the entrance exam, and doesn't actually end up bumping into Uraraka because this time he's not a nervous mess. He's going in with a goal, and that's it. He stays low-key and keeps to himself for most of it, trying not to attract any attention from anybody and kind of keeping himself distant, just doing the test, and yeah. One quick point will be that Deku, while he's in the test, is definitely going to be looking around at his surroundings, trying to see if anybody stands out as the mole or the traitor. That said, he would be sitting there with his support item on hand, seeing as he is quirkless on his file, and so the commission was actually allowing Deku to take his support item for the test. Ida, just like in the original, would still end up making a fool out of himself, and eventually everybody would end up being told to go outside after the testing would have finished. This is when Deku would be outside waiting in a full tracksuit outfit, trying to simply go to the front, before Ida would actually step in the way and hold his hand over his shoulder with a firm grip. Deku's instincts would kick in, and it's at this point that Deku would flip Ida over his shoulder saying, "Get your," before realizing that, he's not supposed to have reacted that way. Deku would immediately say, "I'm so sorry," before Ida would say, like, "What's your problem? Like, why would you slam me down?" And Deku would say that it's his reflexes, he's sorry about that, he was trained that way. Ida would pretty much say that he just wanted to tell him not to go bother that girl over there, and Deku would say he simply wanted to make it to the front, before bowing down to Ida, apologizing profusely. Deku at this point would have Ida look at him strangely, as he would just say, "It's fine, I got in your way, my bad, I read the whole situation wrong." And Ida would say that, it's his bad, that he deserved it. From here, Deku would say, "Well, I'll hope to see you in the class," as Ida would say, "You as well." And Deku would simply go to the front of the class, not the classroom, but the front of the gate, where he proceeds to use his magnetized diamond accessory to pretty much help him jump the wall. As soon as he does, a bunch of people in the crowd would immediately say, "Hey, he's cheating!" However, this is when President Mike would say, "What are you guys talking about? A hero battle doesn't have a countdown. He's doing exactly what he should do. You guys should follow in his example," as he would lower the gate and say, "Go, go, 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 go!" Immediately afterwards, everybody would begin rushing into the exam site, as Deku would go on to destroy tons of 1, 2, and 3-point robots, just enough to get him through the exam, getting a grand total of 42 robot points. He would have gone in there using his acrobatic skills as well as fighting style to rip off limbs from robots and just utterly go down there and destroy them. Deku's physical strength is actually on a whole nother level, and it's superhuman. Think Stain. So Deku is definitely going to be able to be dismantling a couple of robots, not to mention with his support item, he's able to go through this like light work. However, Deku would definitely be heavily holding back because he doesn't want to show his true colors, and he doesn't want people to put their attentions too much on him. He simply wants to make sure that he is recognized for his talents and that people don't doubt him for, well, being quirkless. That said, Deku would be going on like this until the 0-pointer would finally come in, and while Izuku was planning to simply run away after seeing the 0-pointer and the crowd running, Deku would hear the screams of a girl, and this is when suddenly Deku's heart would stop. He would look at the direction of Uraraka, who at this point looked as if she needed saving, and Deku's body, it moves on his own. Deku would think to himself, "What am I doing? but his body would not let him stop. He would jump from rooftop to rooftop as he runs as fast as he possibly could, doing parkour across each part of the roof, until eventually he charges enough static electricity to the point where he jumps on top and grabs onto the robot with his magnetized glove before the electricity shock would blast, causing the robot to stop in place. And Deku would jump off of the robot as he would land on the floor and tumble, before he then rushes towards Uraraka and says, "You okay?" Uraraka would just be looking at Deku, who at this point just looks like a complete pro hero, and she would say, yeah. But Deku, after this happens, he would put her on his shoulders before thinking to himself that he should not have done that. He clearly just made it look like he clearly just made himself stand out there, and that is exactly the opposite of what he wanted. He would think to himself that that's not a very good start to the mission, but ultimately would take Uraraka to Recovery Girl, where she would, pretty much give her a lollipop and a kiss to heal her ankle, as from here, Uraraka would say, "Hey, wait," but Deku would be long gone. Everyone at this point would have been watching him, and Deku, feeling a little bit uneasy at this, would have ended up deciding to leave. He would decide to pretty much make his way back towards the Hero Commission, where he would simply wait to find his acceptance letter, which for the following week, Deku would be looking at files regarding all of the students who would have passed the test, with Izuku being shocked that Bakugo, one of his childhood friends, is actually one of the people who passed, not being surprised that Todoroki was one of them, seeing as he is the son of Endeavor, and he would think about all the possibilities of the lists of student who could be the UA traitor, using his deductive skills to simply look at their files, their quirks, their fighting styles, and their record in middle school. A couple of people would stand out to him, but he has no evidence to go based off of, so Deku would simply put these to the back of his mind and write them off as potential suspects. This would make him decide that he's going to be focusing on Class 1A for a couple of months and branch out to Class 1B as soon as he possibly can. After looking at these files for a while, he would decide to simply just get ready, and we're going to be having a brief time skip to the first day of class. Now, Izuku's first day of class, better or worse, is basically going to be going like a usual day. He would be prompted by the Hero Commission that he will no longer be known as Agent 9 and would be given his, his new fake alias, as well as pro hero name that he's going to be choosing, but that's going to be revealed on a later date. That said, he would be briefed on everything and all the details of everything that he's going to be needing to do, and also given a pro hero outfit, which Izuku is definitely going to be digging. That said, following this, we're going to be having a brief, I actually already addressed this. The time skip to the first day of UA High. Like I said, Izuku would take a train to school, and when he would finally arrive at the UA doors, he would walk in to see Bakugo and Ida arguing. That's the first thing that he would see, and Deku would simply think back to his memories with Kacchan or Bakugo, as, he would get caught staring by Bakugo, who would go on to press him, saying, "What you looking at, nerd?" But Deku would say, "Oh, nothing, my bad," as he would walk off to the back of the classroom. This is where he would simply go to sit back and observe as everybody is coming into the classroom, and Deku would be watching everybody, lifting his eyes and looking at his desk very quickly, just getting brief glimpses of what everybody looks like and what they're doing in the classroom, trying to make a sort of profile on every single person that is in his classroom, realizing that, this is going to be a little bit difficult. Following this, a girl with brown hair would walk up towards Deku and she would say, "Hey, I tried talking to you the other day." And Deku would look up to Uraraka. However, before she could say another word to Deku, this is when a man with inside of a sleeping bag would pop up, as Deku would notice this to be Aizawa, the pro hero Eraserhead. As Aizawa would say, "It's taking you guys 8 seconds to be quiet. That's not gonna do. Throw these on and meet me outside." Uraraka would pause, saying, "But what about orientation?" But Aizawa would simply say that he decides how his class is run, and this is what he decided. So go put him on and meet him outside. This is when Deku would go to the changing room, where a lot of people would actually notice the scars on Deku's body, with Kirishima pointing out that they're manly. This is when everybody would go outside, and Deku would from here be told to throw the ball. But since he has no sort of support item, he would simply reel his arm back, and he would get an impressive score of 105 meters. When Aizawa sees this, he would check Deku's files to see if he's truly quirkless, and from here he would realize that, yeah, the file's not lying. From here, Aizawa would go on to say, "You're incredibly strong for a quirkless kid." And Deku, as soon as he was told that he was, well, the first place and given the ball, Bakugo definitely would have gone angered, seeing as he thought he was going to be the one in first place, but apparently some quirkless kid beat him to it. A certain amount of rage would begin to boil within Bakugo, but what is he going to do? You know what I mean? It's a prestigious school. He's not just going to go around hitting people like he normally would at middle school. That said, this is when Deku would say that he's been training and he didn't just get into this prestigious school for no reason, saying that he put in the work and it's the fruits of his labor. The class would be shocked after hearing that Izuku is quirkless and he got a score of 105 meters. That's extremely impressive. Even amongst pro heroes, that's something that not a lot of them could actually get. Not a lot of them that don't have super strength quirks. That said, Bakugo, like I said, would put a target on that quirkless kid's back and realize that he needs to show up in case, this quirkless kid thinks that he's getting too ahead of himself. That said, keep in mind, he never ended up knowing that Deku is quirkless and also thinks he's dead, so he has absolutely zero suspicions on Deku, who just goes along with the rest of the exams. Following this, we would have the 50-meter dash, which Deku would complete with ease, actually racking up a very impressive score of whatever you guys think is impressive, because I don't know what an impressive score for the 50-meter dash is. Say like 3 seconds? No, 50 meters can't be done. Like 5 seconds? I think that sounds decent, or 5 or 4 seconds. That said, the next test would be the grip strength, and when Deku would go up there, he would get a score almost similar to that of Dupli arms. As for the next test, it would be the standing long jump, and Deku would get a very, very impressive score. After that, they would have to do the repeated side-to-side steps, and once this happens, Deku would actually be having a very, very impressive score, because his side-to-side steps is something that he often had to practice with his training, to try to get quick on his feet. So Deku did very, very well and actually got second place in that. That said, the ball throw was up next, and this time Deku was able to rack up a impressive 109 meters, throwing it just a little bit more powerful, putting a little more power into his throw than he did originally. That said, the 3 remaining tests would consist of push-ups, sit-ups, and planks, which Izuku would be the top in all of them. All of those tests, Izuku would be the top in all of them. Following this, we would have Bakugo, who was just absolutely shocked at Luna's performance, or as I'll be referring to him, Deku's placement on the leaderboard. Seeing that Deku actually did almost as good as himself, seeing as he got the first place in all 3 of the last tests, Deku definitely solidified himself as a prime target of Bakugo. Seeing as he's quirkless and Bakugo is already thinking that he needs to show him up, Bakugo would take that as a huge hit to his ego, thinking that, quirks are everything all his life and that he's the best, but all of a sudden, he's kind of being given a reality check. That said, this is when Aizawa would also end up telling them that, that the member who would be expelled would be Mineta, because even though I forgot to mention this, the class would still think that this test was fun. And after Aizawa heard that, he gave them the challenge of, fun, right? Well, then I guess you guys wouldn't mind if I spiced up the goal or something like that. I don't know what words to exactly use right now. It's escaping me. But basically, he would tell the class that they are going to be needing to get the highest scores possible because the last one is going to be expelled from UA High. People would say that it's unfair, and Aizawa would ultimately say, life's unfair, before taking Mineta, nodding to Deku, and taking Mineta to the office, where Mineta would promptly be expelled. Following this, Aizawa would tell Izuku that his skills as a quirkless individual are unparalleled and that he definitely thinks Deku will be able to make a name for himself, that he's going to be needing to work harder than the rest of them, but that he sees huge promise in Deku, saying that he reminds him of kind of what he was like, because he never had a flashy quirk and he fights with hand-to-hand combat almost like what he expects Deku will. That said, he would then tell the entire class to leave. And it's at this point that Aizawa would proceed to just go home with everybody else doing this. That said, this would definitely shorten down the list of spies for All for One down for Deku, and after class, Deku would make sure to make a list on who the potential traitor could be, and Deku as a whole would begin acting different than what his real personality is, a more friendly, approachable person to make it easier for Deku to get close to as many of his classmates as possible. That said, about 3 days worth of Deku getting to know his classmates would pass, and Deku would get a basic understanding of how his classroom is ran and how everyone acts so far. Deku doesn't have any leads, but he's definitely thinking of potential suspects, with one of the prime ones being Invisible Girl, since her quirk would allow her to slip by unnoticed very easily. Deku is definitely paying a ton of attention to her, or Hagakure, which is her real name. That said though, on the 4th day of class, Aizawa would be late to class, and this is when suddenly All Might would pop up in the middle of the classroom saying, "I am here!" walking into the classroom like a normal person, as everybody in the class would be shocked, and Deku seeing All Might in person would have a sense of nostalgia overcome him. Because as a kid, this was his hero, this was the person who he thought would someday save him, in that hell that he grew up in. But now, Deku has become hardened and doesn't believe in somebody saving him. He doesn't even think that he'll ever be saved from the organization that he's a part of. And while Deku hates it, it's what he has to do to survive. Because if Deku denies it, he'll die. And what other choice does he really have? That said, this is when All Might would tell the classroom that he believes that the clothes that pro heroes wear is what makes them pros. And, they would all be told that the clothes make the pros, in All Might's words, as everybody would go on to change into their hero outfits. And once this is done, everybody noticing Deku come from the back of the classroom as he was one of the last ones to be changed, the entire class would be focusing on Deku's costume and just how awesome it looks. He would have created a robotic arm to give him extra strength and support with his diamond support item. Very, very similar to the Winter Soldier, minus the star on his shoulder. That said, the grouping would commence, and for today's video, I decided I would take the liberty of actually randomizing the matches. And what I came up with will actually surprise many of you guys. It's going to be as follows: Izuku and Momo versus Kirishima and Ojiro. Or no, not Ojiro, but Jiro. I'm sorry. I'm dumb. That said, now we're going to be getting into the battles themselves. Bakugo, seeing that he's going to finally see Deku in action, would think that he's going to be paying close attention to him, and everybody would be told and escorted to the area where they're going to be watching the battle. That said, I'm only going to be covering Deku's battle in this version since everything was randomized and I could not be bothered to cover everything. But keep in mind that after his battle, which will be first, Deku is going to be paying extremely close attention to everybody else's quirks and how they work in order to gain more of an understanding on everybody in the class. That said, as soon as Momo would be paired with Izuku, she would feel pretty excited to be working alongside Deku, who seems strong regardless of being quirkless, and he would tell her that he'll be climbing through the roof and she should create a heat signature device for him that he would go on to absorb in his nanotech, which he would use to create a scouter-like thing that shows him the villain's location, or, Kirishima and Jiro. That said, he would tell Momo that he'll go in from the top using his robotic arm to climb, and that she should go in from the actual roof. Oh no, not the roof, but the stairs, saying that if they both come in from opposite directions, they could split them up and get one-on-one battles going. That said, he would also tell her to take this, as he would throw a stun gun at her direction and tell her how to use it. He would tell her to use it on Jiro, as from here, he would tell her that he's going to be handling that Kirishima fellow, that he seems to be the strongest one out of the two, but not to let her guard down with Jiro, seeing as she has some sort of sound-based quirk, and from what he saw from her file, she's able to shoot out like sound waves with her quirk. That said, if everything goes to plan, they should win, and he would tell her to go off based off his signal when she should enter. She would go on to agree with this plan, saying that she was thinking of doing almost the same thing, that a 2v2 approach would have been better, but that since she didn't know about Deku being able to magnetize his support item, she was just going to suggest going and fighting them, head on. But Deku's plan definitely does seem better. From this point, Deku would say that, his plan is pretty good, and Momo would ask him if he's sure he can take on Kirishima alone, before he would smile and say, "Oh, you doubt me because I'm quirkless? Don't worry about me. It's you I'm worried about," as he chuckles. And from here, he would move her hair out of her face, before nodding and leaving Momo in a red state, like she is as red as a tomato, thinking that that kid is something else. That said, Deku at this point would climb up using his magnetized glove, and from here he would crash through the top of the window, with Jiro yelling, "He's here!" and Kirishima saying, "All right, finally," as he hardens himself with his quirk and clashes his fists together. From here, Deku would then go on to say, "Sorry for crashing the party, but I wasn't invited." Like for part 3!